There's going to be a crash July 2024. We're here to tell you about it, how you can avoid it, or you might want to participate. Coming up next. It's the Cash Cultures Collide. Ladies and gentlemen, it's finally here, July 2024. It's JDew and Jonah here of the Cash Compound and the Banking Bros. And we've got a very, very special guest coming to our platform and program over the course of July. So if you can't get to it on time, you want to go find it. I know you are.
You're probably going to want to watch a replay.
Yeah, for sure.
It. But it's going to be more fun if you're there live. This is happening all through the month of July. We're really excited about it. We're going to tell you all about it in this episode.
Here we go. Denzel Rodriguez is going to be joining us. He is a collaborator friend of ours now, but he's been doing his thing on YouTube for several years.
For a long time.
Now, Jonah, you recognized this cat first when we met him earlier in 2024. Remind us how that went down and where we found him.
Yeah, so earlier this year, we were actually featured as keynote speakers at the Infinite Banking Institute event, right? It's the Nelson Nash Institute annual event, and Jeremiah and I had the pleasure of gracing the stage and speaking. But in the room of people, there was a lot of people too, about 200 or so.
I think it was 275.
Yeah, it was a lot of people.
Yeah,
but in the room, right, where, sometimes you got to scope out the room a little bit so you can see who's there and who's not there, right?
You got to find people to laugh at your jokes before you get up there and let them know. Yeah.
And I turn to the right and I see Denzel walk in. And the reason, of course, I recognize him is because he's big time on YouTube, in my opinion. Big time on YouTube in the finance space. If I'm not mistaken, he's got over 50,000 followers that follow him through all of his intricate, creative finance topics. And so when I saw him, I went, oh my goodness, Denzel's here. I think I hit you and, look, Denzel's over there. That's awesome. And the coolest part about the whole experience, of course, is that Denzel approaches us after our speech at that event and says, we've got to connect. We've got to do something together. And so through brainstorming together, this event was born, and we're really excited about it.
Yeah. So I have seen one or two of his long form videos. And one of the things that he kind of hones in on quite a bit, and I didn't know exactly if he understood what we were doing on the infinite banking side, but he likes to talk about velocity banking. Yep. One of his things. And he has so many topics about that. If you're dying to go find him right now, you're going to want to look him up on YouTube. That's one of his main platforms. There's a lot of visuals. Denzel Napoleon Rodriguez. So Denzel Napoleon Rodriguez is what you're looking for. So Jonah, when you first heard, did you hear about infinite banking before velocity banking? Was it, did you see that they could tie together? I know you've helped so many people walk and talk through.
I definitely heard about infinite banking before velocity banking. Yeah.
So what was your thought on velocity banking? And a lot of times people are using HELOCs to get involved with that type of program. He teaches that and everything like that. So yeah, what was your take on that? And did you see them marrying each other well, working together well, or did you see more of a collision?
Yeah, it's really unique. And it's because of the stage in life that I was when I saw infinite banking for the very first time, right? So again, I saw infinite banking before I heard of velocity banking. And when I saw infinite banking, I was young. So that's like 22 at the time when I first saw infinite banking. And so when you think about velocity banking, like you just said, it's about using a HELOC.
Right.
But when I saw infinite banking at 22, I didn't even own a home.
Okay.
So if I would have saw velocity banking and they would have been talking about HELOC, running all your debts and expenses through that, it wouldn't have hit home for me because that's not the stage of life that I was in. Right. Then, of course, I got started with infinite banking when I was young. And so by the time I did purchase my first house, utilizing infinite banking policies to do so. And then now I've heard about velocity banking. I was already so deep invested into infinite banking that now the only conversation that I'm really trying to have is do infinite banking and velocity banking tie in together.
Right.
Right. As opposed to, what's your general thought on velocity banking and should you do it? And that's just not where I was when I saw it.
I think a lot of people who probably look at our program here, the Cash Compound, the save and spend system as our foundational tool for getting started with wealth building, they too are so entrenched into one area or one zone that it's hard to know what your opinion is on it until you know what it is and where you are.
Yep.
Okay, so I go live on TikTok all the time, and I get to kind of see what the people are doing, the common people. They'll hit me with all sorts of comments. I'm live at the Banking Bros or the Cash Compound most weeks, 4 or 5 times. And a lot of people get on there and they say, hey, what's your opinion about Bitcoin? What's your opinion about index funds? And it's like, well, you're going to have to tell me where you are or where I am. That one-liner, and of course the platform only lets you put in 1 or 2 lines. You just don't know what your opinion is.
Right.
I don't know. So we got together with Denzel, ladies and gents, and coming up through the month of July, you can go back and watch a replay if you haven't seen it yet. What we're going to do each and every Thursday, starting with the holiday, the birthday of America. How old are we going to be this year?
1776. That's going to make us old, but I'd have to do the math.
It's a leap year.
No, it doesn't matter. 2024 minus 1776. The difference of that is how old America is this year.
That is correct.
Okay.
What was that number again?
2024.
No, I heard that.
I don't know. 200.
And 48.
There you go.
248. So on our nation's 248th birthday, at least when we celebrated, the British had something else to say because we had to fight a war over it. We are going to get into what is called the Cash Cultures Collide. See, Denzel is of Latin flavor.
Yep.
Okay. And what we've decided to do is come through as folks of black folks here, black and brown folks getting together, and we're going to chop it up a little bit. We're going to remix it. We're going to mash it up and have a little bit of a cash culture collision and talk and walk through how we got here.
Yep.
You know, I like history. I'm into American history things, right? Black American history things. And so I'm really excited about this. And how did we get here? Because most people's financial literacy is so very low.
I agree.
And in the minority communities that we're going to talk about and that we represent, you know, being people of color, that's what the other people call us,
yep.
People of color.
That's right.
Is that a fair term? What do you think?
It's fine with me and it doesn't bother me.
Okay. A lot of times we're behind. We're behind the 8 ball, as they would say. We're coming up from the rear. We're digging ourselves out of a ditch. And how did we get here? Why is it that we get to 21, 22, 23 years old and we don't understand anything about banking, credit? We don't understand anything about real estate. We don't understand anything about wealth building, and there was none that we inherited.
Yep.
How did we get here? Jonah, let me get your take on it. I like to pick on you in this regard because between the two of us, I know I'm the history guy. Sure. I'm the one who's always talking about the culture. And, you know, our keynote now that we give out there, and hit us up in the chat if you want to see our keynote. We have we got some special links probably for those of you who want to see what we've done on stage before to kind of bring this into where we are today in 2024 and beyond. But what's your take on how did we get here as a culture? That minority money mindset. Why are we so far behind?
Yeah, I think that, I mean, it's just my 2 cents, but I think that there's a couple of, well, here's one that I always think about. This will make sense to you. One that I always think about. When you think about the Civil Rights Act, I think, is that 1961?
Ooh, no.
I'm close.
Yes.
64?
Yes.
Okay.
The first one, 64.
1964. When you think about the Civil Rights Act of 1964,
okay.
And then we deal with insurance a lot when we talk about whole life insurance. We talk about building infinite banking. And give me the date that New York Life or Mass Mutual's been around since.
Oh, New York Life used to be the Nautilus Life Insurance Company.
Right, of New York.
Of course, they merge and change their names and stuff like that. So I'm going to go with 1870.
All right. So let me ask you a question. From 1870 until 1950, 1960, 1964, Civil Rights Act, who bought all the life insurance? What color were they?
Right. There was a lot of... Now... White folks,
right?
So the European descendants.
So that's, I think it's not the full answer to your question, but it's a little bit of my take on how'd we get so far behind. Well, there were certain opportunities that weren't afforded to us until a lot later than some of the other people who were here and who had those opportunities. And so if you really go back and you really kind of map it all out, and I'm not just talking about a life insurance space, but let's be real. If someone can sign up for a life insurance policy and give their family 5 figures or 6 figures after they're gone, and the person that's next door to them can't do that, then one's going to be a little bit more ahead than the other one, especially if you start removing 1 or 2 or 3 generations. It's just what's going to be. And I think about that one a lot because, of course, that's what we deal with in the insurance space. We want to help people when they talk about leaving a legacy for their family. We want to help people
in the Jewish
when they
community
talk
turns over
about
12
so many other things. You good there?
Yeah. I was just queuing up something that's you're leading into it so well. So we're going to get to it in a second.
Yeah, but that's a little bit of my answer. I think about that one a lot just because that's the space that I'm in. Like, this is just the reality of where we are today. I'm not upset at anyone who's listening to this podcast or anyone who's watching it on YouTube. I'm not upset at you, but that's the reality of where we are. I don't like when people try to talk about that's not the reality of where we are, because it is. But that's my answer for, like, how'd we get behind? Well, there's a lot of things of how we got behind. And that's one that comes to my mind pretty frequently.
Yeah. You know what? I'm going to talk a little bit about the holiday that we just got done celebrating, became a federal holiday in 2021 after we watched this clip. We found this by scouring the internet and listening to those sound bites. And I think this one on Black Enterprise, which I guess it looks like I probably found on Instagram, is going to be great for us. So we're going to put that on the screen for those of you who are watching. And of course, if you're listening, hopefully you can hear it and debate this idea with us a little bit for a second.
The dollar in the Jewish community turns over 12 times before it ever leaves. In the Indian community, 10 times. In the African American community, less than 1. As it lands, you can't wait to take the money and spend it somewhere else. The dollar in the Jewish community turns over...
Let's talk through that. Let's talk through that for a second. So when I first heard that a dollar turns itself over and over and over within a community, I think the very first context was Black Wall Street, Tulsa.
Okay.
Now, this is 10 years ago, so we hadn't hit the centennial event for that. It was 1921. So in 2021, it got a whole lot more love. Did you see any of the, at the 100-year anniversary, did you see any like of the documentaries they did?
Because it's been 100 years. I did.
So I heard about Black Wall Street from our grandfather.
Okay.
Back in the day. Didn't know what it was. But he told me about it and how important it was and what that meant. I didn't know what it meant. And the idea of money turning itself inside a community, because if I could guess, it was like 40 times that dollar could turn within Tulsa's Wall Street.
Tulsa, Oklahoma, okay.
And we just heard the clip there. I didn't know what that meant even. So can you explain to us, or what's your thoughts on, like, what does that mean? The dollar.
I always hear, and the clip said it too, I always hear it when you talk about the Jewish community, but really what it means is when you earn the dollar, right? So let's say I live in Tulsa, Oklahoma, for instance. I earn the dollar. I pay the person also in Tulsa, Oklahoma for the groceries who works and earns there. And now he's got the dollar. And he pays the person who cuts the grass in Tulsa, Oklahoma, one of the neighbors. Now the neighbor's got the dollar. And then he pays for the ice cream from the ice cream guy, and now he's got the dollar. And so it's keeping the dollar in the community is what it is. That's what they mean by turning it. It's not that as soon as you get the money, you go and you spend it outside of the community or pay the person who lives in the next town over or pay the big corporate America. That's not what you do. You keep the money inside the community. That's what they mean by turning it.
Yeah. Now that was a completely new term to me. I did not understand what that meant because I didn't understand that the dollar staying with you and moving was what creates the wealth.
Yeah.
It's not the dollar, it's what the dollar can bring you. And if the dollar is bringing your neighbor and your clerk and your school teacher and your insurance guy, you can just move it around within the community, and it allows us to share the resource pool, and the resources just keep moving. The cobbler, the haircut, the ice cream truck, all that keeps happening. I mean, that completely blew my mind. Yep. And in the Black community, and of course, we'll hear from Denzel, in the Hispanic, the Latin community, those dollars leave quickly. They go other places, and other cultures over the course of the last 150 years have figured out, you got to keep the dollar within your neighborhood.
We've got a friend in the infinite banking space these days that's an ex-Mennonite. Right.
Yes.
And he talks
which is
often.
We need to put him on this cash cultures thing.
Yeah, that would be crazy. That's a culture that would everyone just tune in for that one.
Right.
Listen.
I'm gonna write a whole book.
But
on that.
He talks a lot about that too. The money stays in the group. The money stays in the culture. The money stays in the community. And I think it took me a long time, so I kind of understood the money turning in the community. But it took me longer to understand how that helps generate the wealth than it did what keeping the dollar in the community is. Because like so many, I think, especially when you're young and coming up, you make money and then you immediately want to go and spend it, what the clip said.
Yeah.
But you're realizing it's almost like that Small Business Saturday, right? Supporting small businesses. You've got to support your community, your people, your neighbor. You don't actually want the money to all go to the big corporate. That's not actually where you want the money. If all the money goes there, then they've got all it's the golden rule. Who has the gold makes all the rules. And if you give all the money to the big corporation, they make all the rules. If you can keep a lot of that money or move it through your community, you've got so much more control. You've got the ability to make those rules. And that's a little bit of what I'm excited to learn from Denzel and talk through some of those aspects as we go these next couple weeks with it. We're going live with him, so it's going to be fun.
Yeah, let's take a look back at the last couple of weeks. In the last couple of years, the last couple of weeks have started to have a lot more bigger focus on Juneteenth.
That's right.
So we just got off of that holiday, the end of June, June 19th, which commemorates the Union Army, the U.S. Army, Porton in Galveston, Texas, showing up there and saying, war's over. Now, Abraham Lincoln had, of course, freed the slaves. I said that earlier. 2 years earlier, right? 1863, January 1st, right? The Emancipation Proclamation says that enslaved people, slaves within, not all slaves, not a game. We're talking about practice because they were in the middle of a war.
Right.
So it's just practice at this point. What it is slaves in rebelling states are free.
Yep.
Now, the slaves in the rebelling states are literally a part of another country, according to those states. So, of course, they don't abide by the laws of the U.S. government. They're no longer United States.
Right.
And I think sometimes we miss that because they lost the war. But while we were in war, they treated their country as a different country. Mm-hmm. So they don't have, it's nothing to them. Right? Whatever Abraham Lincoln's upset. They got Jefferson Davis. You like how I pulled that name out?
Is that who it was?
Yeah.
Jefferson Davis?
Jefferson Davis.
That's
and who was
name,
the...
though.
What?
That's a strong name for the leader of the country.
Right.
Jefferson Davis.
And then there was Andrew Stevens.
They had two.
No. I mean, he was
okay.
Was the vice. And he's Stevens County, Georgia. It's like an hour from here.
Oh,
That's him.
okay.
Yeah. Okay. Fact check me on those people. I think that's right. Okay. So here we go. They show up, the Union Army, soldiers, say, you're free to go. And they came to enforce it, right? There's, if you read into it, I think you're going to understand that the slave holders of those areas were, they were still trying to have their own thing going.
Yep.
In Texas, this is in Texas. Texas has Six Flags because it was a bunch of different countries.
Whatever they want.
Yeah, Texas was its own thing. It's like Florida today was Texas of yesterday, right? Okay. So what they tell them is you're free to go. Now, here's the question and where it comes into what we're doing today, Jonah. If you have first, second, third generation African and you've lived here maybe your whole life because your parents or your grandparents, this is 1865. So slave trade had just ended, like the slave trade cross Atlantic had ended a few years before.
Yep.
So you're second, third generation. This is home now. Your grandmother, if she's living, can remember Africa.
Yep.
You've never handled money before.
Yep. Right.
You have no resources.
Yep.
You use other people's plows and picks and mules to get the job done. What do you do now?
And they say you're free.
Yeah, we're free to do.
Free to do what? Now, a lot of people in this sense stayed right where they were because the question that we're asking, free to do what? Where am I supposed to go with no resources and no money and everything like that?
And so they still worked some of the same farms, right? Terrible conditions, but not that it was, it had to be a little bit better, but sometimes they were paid. They started forming communities, what became Tulsa, right, during that time. And they were thriving. Obviously in Tulsa. That was the model community, right? Big deal. So let's think about that as so if that's what happens to your ancestral heritage, we're thinking about tops. We're going to have like 6 generations from that time.
Yep.
Like 6 generations. You ever think about that? 6 dads and grandfathers ago. That's those folks. How do they make it? How does that pass on to you? What is passed on to you when, if they do well, they're even terrorized for it and the community gets burned down, torn down, black codes, slave laws, Jim Crow,
right,
and civil rights come into play.
Which is kind of what I was saying earlier. It's the reality of where we are today. And being 6 generations removed, I don't think that it's the biggest thing in the world to. I don't think that you should harp on that, right, and be upset at everybody else and because of the color of someone's skin. I don't think that's it.
I want my 40 acres and my mule right now.
Right. But I think it's the reality of where we are. And so many of the people of color community, whatever they call it, what do they actually call it? Is it?
We're people of color.
No, but they call it, they have an acronym. They have an acronym for
POC.
everything.
BIPOC.
Yeah, BIPOC. That's what I was thinking. I don't know what is BNI.
BNI. Black Indigenous people of color?
Oh, that's what it is.
Is that what it is?
Indigenous. I forgot it. Yeah.
They don't even tell us what it is, and we're supposed to know.
They just make it up. They didn't ask us if we approved
right.
it. But anyway, I think that it's so.
We have the same opportunity moving forward. The problem is we came here at different points on the starting line. Yeah,
we're not starting at the same starting line. So same opportunity moving forward, sure. But if you're not starting at the same spot, then it still looks different, right? So anyway, that's what I'm really excited to talk about and jump into. I think it'll be really fun. But
okay, let's talk about this legacy here for a second. We're going to screen over again. Listen up, everybody. I found this other clip in the last week, and I think this one's great as well to help us and remind us about that legacy play. What we're trying to do now that we're here, where do we go?
Yep.
Here it is.
We're not creating legacy wealth. It is just a shot in the arm. In Japanese culture, every family has a 100-year family plan, and we can pull together a family reunion every 2 years.
Right.
How do we shift that narrative to go with where you started in terms of mindset?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You know, it's interesting. One of my favorite books is 7 Habits of Highly Effective People.
Yes.
I think it's habit number 2. You have to begin with the end in mind. Right? You have to begin with the end in mind. I think that the scripture affirms this. The Bible says, write the vision, make it plain, it shall speak and not lie. And in every aspect of our lives, we have to envision the end. And we have to think about what our wills look like today. We have to think about what our children inherit today. We have to think about what where our grandchildren go to college and high school today. That's how our counterparts think. They're not thinking about where am I going out next week.
I like that. What do you think about that? Give me your first reaction response.
Yeah, I think as a community, there's not a lot of people who think that way, but I think that's one of the differences to a lot of people, especially in the infinite banking space, who start to think about family legacy, who start to think about financial legacy. I think that video to me speaks to the people that we are trying to attract and speak to by talking through things like cash cultures and infinite banking and money and finance. So I like it.
All right. We found that one on the Jamal Bryant podcast. I think that was a TikTok little hit that we pulled off, one of their shorts or reels there. So you can check them out if you liked what you heard so far. Jonah, let me walk and talk you through what these 4 weeks are going to be about. Remember, it's the Cash Cultures Collide event. It is free, ladies and gentlemen, with Denzel Rodriguez. He's Denzel Napoleon Rodriguez on YouTube, and I'll be joined by him. He'll be joined by us. We're going to do this live on YouTube, 3:30 p.m. Eastern time throughout the month of July.
That's every Thursday.
Every Thursday.
Every Thursday in July. And there will be a link. If you're listening to the podcast, you might have to jump on the phone, pick it up real quick to click that registration link. If you're watching on YouTube, it'll be in the description of the video here. There'll be a link for you to register so you can get the reminders to remind you and the little ping in the notice so you know how to jump on and jump in live.
All right. Week one, rebuilding reputation. That's what it's going to be about. Okay, I've got a great clip. We won't get into it today. I thought we might. But I saw this piece. You can look it up. And it's called Selling to the Negro.
Okay.
It's like 1960. And it's like CNN or something had done it. Whoever was around back
how
then.
to.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
How to sell to the Negro. Okay. So we might have to hit people with that. I think that might make an appearance in week 1. Rebuilding reputation. Week number 2, this is one I'm definitely going to lead, and I'm going to dive in deep and help people understand. It's going to be the minority money mindset.
Okay.
We're going to put that foundation out there for everybody to see. We're going to talk a little bit about velocity banking, make sure people understand what's going on when it comes to Denzel's specialty, and, of course, the save and spend system, the infinite banking concept. That's week 2.
Yep.
Okay. Week number 3 is rediscovering purpose. Rediscovering purpose. Jonah, what happens if you get your foundation right? You lay that foundation. The wise man built his house upon the rock. Now we can rediscover purpose. What happens?
Yeah, you're able to build really tall, really big, really strong buildings, really strong structures, really strong, whatever you're trying to build. You can go up really high, really far. You can impact a lot of people if you have a strong foundation. You have a weak foundation, any little thing can crumble that. And so it's all about building a strong foundation.
I love it. And our last and final week, this one Denzel's definitely going to lead.
Okay.
I'm going to speak into, I've read one book in this area, I think that but he really led into this. It's going to be called Understanding Jurisdictional Finance.
Okay.
We're going to talk a lot about how the kingdom can come, because over the course of many, many millennia, cultures and churches have had power, and how do they use that power with their people who have faith, who believe in something bigger than themselves? How do they band together and impact their community and their world?
Love it.
Jurisdictional finance. So we'll hit on the faith game a little bit in there. I believe Denzel is really excited about that. We're going to just hit it strong all month long, but in that last week, I think it's really going to be great for folks who really think there's something more going on here than just my own personal banking balance.
There it is.
Okay, we want to shout out to some folks out there. And we've got a fan follow of the week. Jonah, tell us who we got.
Yeah, so shout out to Luca Beltrami. I think I said the last name right. Would you say it, Beltrami?
I would.
Beltrami. Luca Beltrami, you are a subscriber on YouTube in the last couple weeks here. And we wanted to say thank you for doing so. We appreciate that. We hope that you're watching those videos. We hope that you're finding some value there. If you are listening to this podcast or see this podcast and see your YouTube profile, what do they call it? YouTube avatar, YouTube circle come up, then
circle.
You should leave us.
It is a circle.
You should leave us a comment or shout us out. We'll be happy to answer your questions. But thanks for the subscribe on YouTube.
All right, I believe Luca might be. I've seen that name pop up. So
Okay.
either Luca is busy giving us feedback and comments, or Luca is in our Infinite Bankers Facebook group. That
cool.
might be what it is. And so if you want to join our private community where you can get your questions answered and see what people are doing in, day out, you can join Infinite Bankers as well. We've got a private community. We'd love to have you in there, whether or not you've gotten started with us. Remember, what we're doing over the course of July 2024 is absolutely free. The Cash Cultures Collide event is 4 Thursdays, 3:30 p.m. Eastern Time, live on YouTube. You can pre-register and join us somewhere in the Zoom community. You can watch it on YouTube, I think. You can hopefully hit a replay. These days, we're just streaming in so many places or recording it. Sometimes I get lost.
Yeah, and if you're following us on the other social media platforms, that's Instagram, that's X, formerly known as Twitter, that's LinkedIn, that's on Facebook, you're going to see lots of promotion for this event because we're super excited about it. So you'll see us and Denzel speaking into this event a good amount. And just in case that you're unfamiliar with Denzel's Instagram or YouTube channel and the finance things that he talks, again, just tune into our channel. We'll show you some of those things. And just in case you're unfamiliar with what infinite banking is, we've got a YouTube video that you can watch as well. It's called the FAQs, I believe. We'll put a link in the bio here or link in the description so you can find it and you can walk through some of the frequently asked questions that people get or ask us about the infinite banking concept. And so you can understand a little bit more about what you are going to hear from us on these Thursdays when our cash cultures collide.
As always, we're here for your free consultations around infinite banking concept, the save and spend system. We've always got a free video for you to watch there to learn more about what it is that you can do to save and spend your money at the exact same time. We'll catch you throughout Thursdays in July. Talk soon, everybody. Peace out.
If you enjoyed this episode of the Cash Compound Podcast, you should absolutely register for our Thursday live sessions with Denzel Rodriguez. That'll be every Thursday of the month of July 2024 at 3:30 p.m. Eastern. We look forward to seeing you there.